Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, big show here. Let's see. I'm going to start with the last Senate Oversight Committee that occurred just a couple of days ago. Everybody else, of course, was gone on vacation in Washington, D.C., except for this particular committee, where they brought in the now acting United States Secret Service guy, who ran through basically a bunch of just made-up posters and all kinds of fake, phony stories about where everybody was and how responsible everybody was, apparently, in doing their job, and there were lapses in communication, but no one's been fired, other than the director, and now I'm in charge, and we're going to get things back on top, and don't worry about it. Just more bureaucratic lies. And the guy who's now in charge of the United States Secret Service is a lifer. So again, what happened that day is beyond my guess. It's nice to see that the Maxwell Yerrick story is getting more and more coverage. Not, of course, in the mainstream. They're not touching it with a 10-foot pole. In fact, just out of curiosity, I tuned into Fox News a couple of days back and listened to about 5 minutes of The Five and that ridiculous show. And I quite literally heard Greg Gutfeld say the following, and this is a direct quote. He said, "We're not interested in conspiracies here. We're only interested in the facts," unquote. And I thought, well, therein lies your problem. Because just because you say it doesn't make it a fact. And conspiracy is a crime at the state and federal level. 2 or more people working together to break the law. This is a real thing. This is the way that this gets done. So again, regarding the so-called shooting and everything that took place there, I'll continue to throw videos that I come across in the war videos, certainly in the latter half of those particular videos, and you can check those out. I fully understand that there's a great deal of investigative journalists following as many leads as humanly possible, which is great, because frankly, this is exactly what you would think our government would be doing, but as we know, they are not doing this. And of course, neither are any other local officials of any kind. In fact, they are consistently contradicting one another. And as you might expect, they're also engaging in as many cover-ups as humanly possible and all trying to save face and make it look like everybody's responsible, when in fact, clearly that can't be the case. It's the old false equivalency strikes again here. So, in that particular Senate hearing, however, there was an email that was read, allegedly by a whistleblower who works for the United States Secret Service, and I have it here, and I want to read it in its entirety because I don't know if it was read in its entirety in that actual hearing, let alone other people bringing it up on their shows and reading it in its entirety. So here's what it said. It was dated Monday, July 29th, 2024, to UND-ALL. Regarding, it says subject, the subject line is regarding 200.030, creation of the Advanced Research and Capabilities Division of the Office of Technical Development and Mission Support, TEC Directorate. There we go. So here's what it said. It said, quote, "Thank you for the backing and support. I am not stopping until 5 high-level supervisors, 1 down," the former female director, Cheadle, "are either fired or removed from their current positions. This agency needs, in capital letters, to change. If not now, when? The next assassination attempt in 30 days, question mark? Because we should all expect another attempt to happen before November. We've exposed our inability to protect our leaders due to our leadership. The technicians who worked on 7/13/24 in Butler, PA did their job with their hands tied. Secret Service supervisors knew better, quote unquote, and the foot soldiers working made the best of a bad situation that resulted in a civilian death and a near miss of the protectee, and our technician shooting and killing the suspect. It says, I know many look at the CS team as, quote, guys who sit on the roof, unquote, and don't do much. But our responsibility, our mission, is not about protecting an empty White House located at 600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's about protecting and stopping another JFK-style assassination in whatever city that may be. Sadly, we have fallen short for years. We just got lucky and looked good doing it. I have conveyed these thoughts to not only supervisors, to include the current captain within CS, but those responsible for training us, SOTS/CS, only to be brushed off, as if those with less experience somehow knew more than me. The team I was once proud to be a part of is something I have to now somehow hide as I move into my next career. Who wants to hire a USSS CS guy who failed? That's the public perception I'm now faced with. The United States Secret Service CS team is a stain I will never be able to cleanse. Some of us take our job and responsibility seriously, deadly seriously. I may be overzealous, but after 7 years in the Marine Corps, as an NCO and 20 plus years on the USSS counter sniper team, failure is not an option. And 7/13/24, we failed. Not because of commitment or sense of dedication, but because our supervisors, all in bold, aka leadership, knew better and thought our concerns were less than important. The motto of the USSS, ... it says CYA, cover your ass. And every supervisor is doing it right now, unquote. And that's where it cuts off. Again, I can't help but read something like that. And of course, take it right back to my old profession of the education profession. This is exactly the kind of email that needs to be written and sent to everybody, regardless of the working environment, when you know that there's wrongdoing and illegality taking place. And individuals are, again, covering their own asses as much as humanly possible, while throwing under the bus the most morally sound, most observant, and most aware individuals who work in that environment. That alone should tell people that that particular agency is completely and utterly corrupt. And again, the new guy who's in charge of the United States Secret Service has worked for Obama and Bush and previous administrations. I mean, the dude is a lifer. And the only way you stay in that business, or a business like that, in particular one that has numerous stains on it, is if you're just agreeable and all you do is nod your head in agreement all of the time. And that's what's happening there. And they're not the only one. DOJ's the same way. FBI's the same way. You can pick a 3-letter agency. They're all the same. That's why they all have to go. They really do. On day one of any real Trump administration going forward, again, as far as the normies are concerned at face value, there has to be a total shutdown and a total cleansing. We're removing everybody from the FBI. You're all fired. We are removing everybody from the DOJ and starting over. They don't have to be as big as they are. They just don't. And these people, again, need to be unemployable. But as you've heard me say, in particular regarding the Department of Education, for example, at the federal level, when you remove a federal agency, where do those people go? They always end up trying to find a job at the local or state level, which means that's where the corruption is going to continue to exist. And it could very well grow. I mean, I should mention that too. It could very well grow at the local and state level when the federal departments are eliminated or downsized, because these individuals will get hired at the state level. They'll get hired at the local level. It'll be on their resume. I used to work for the FBI. I used to work for the Secret Service. I was an administrator in the DOJ. I did this, I did that. And someone will hire them at the local level and still think that that's a good hire, when clearly it won't be. But the hire will be a political one. Someone who is in charge, who is on the left, will hire one of these individuals because the same thing operates in the education business. An individual can lose their job for waving a rainbow flag and an Antifa flag in a classroom in one state, and they'll get hired in another. Again, in the last episode, I went over what the Chicago public schools is wanting to do with all of their teachers and all of the radical ideas that they're pushing forth and the ridiculous amount of money that they want to pay all of them. If a whack job leftist loses their job being a whack job leftist in one state, they're going to move to another state where being a whack job leftist is actually a hiring point. And it's basically a resume filler. and a qualification. So, again, I'm all for the elimination of these departments and the people within, without a doubt. And are they all bad? That would be impossible. But weeding through every single one of them and really figuring out the truth would be next to impossible. You would flat out just have to clean house in these departments. It's the only way. So again, the simple fact that the United States Secret Service guy was combative during that Senate hearing, I think, is very telling. And the simple fact that he showed up with all these charts and was like, okay, we reenacted it, and here's our cartoon chart as to exactly what happened, so you need to take us seriously because now we know what we're doing and blah, blah, blah. But again, it's just a dog and pony show also. I mean, the senators are getting their licks in. It's an election year. They're yelling. They're saying, well, why haven't you fired anybody? And what's wrong with the investigation? And why is it taking so long and everything else? All of these agencies are creating a fictitious story all to get on the exact same page so that when they produce a report in a binder, it will be as accurate as the 9/11 report. It'll be as accurate as any other false report that's ever occurred in the history of forever, because that's the way that government operates. Yarick's name wasn't brought up once. There was no evidence of a van that was brought up in that hearing, to my knowledge. I didn't watch every second of the hearing. There was absolutely no indication that they covered why there was a gun in that building below the roofline of the alleged shooter, which again probably was not the shooter. But why was there a sniper rifle in the window below that roof? And why was there a Secret Service agent in that building? And why were there already cops in that building minutes after the shooting took place? And why were there windows open? Seems odd. So, was it a setup? Most certainly. Again, was it staged to some extent, either white hats or black hats? Who's to know? I think it's leaning more toward a black hat setup. And people have to understand that the government recruits American citizens off the books to run some of these operations because they think that it's easier that way. Again, it's no different in the education business. I've explained this before. In the education business, you have CIA operatives working in school districts all across the United States. This is a thing. This happens. They work at K-12 school districts, public-private charter, and they work for universities and colleges all across the nation. And what's even more nefarious is they don't have to be a CIA employee. All they have to do is be affiliated in some sense. They have to have contacts in the CIA. And then the CIA contacts them and says, okay, here's what's going to happen now. We're going to roll through with this policy. This is the way that it's going to be. This is what's going to happen. And then they start to formulate that policy. And then they go to their conferences and their association meetings, and they start all talking about the exact same policies. And then those policies become commonplace wherever they end up working. That's communism, of course. But it's also off-the-books communism to some extent. Because you're not going to have a superintendent who's also, a double agent for the CIA at nighttime. They're not going to be an on-the-book kind of person. I mean, Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't an on-the-book CIA guy. He just wasn't. He wasn't even a CIA agent. He just had a CIA handler. And they all had handlers, and they would put them in particular situations to have them do particular things that they wanted them to do, and sometimes it was just to gather intel or make run-ins with particular individuals and see if a person was a communist or not. And then, of course, if everything goes to hell or a particular plan plays out the way that they want it, they'll blame those individuals who are off-the-book CIA individuals, like Lee Harvey Oswald. They'll just blame them for something that they themselves did. Because as far as the public's concerned, the so-called patsy isn't even a part of the CIA. They're not even a part of any government agency. Just like Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't. He just had a handler, and a couple of them, at least. So, there you go. Again, I could ramble about it more, but I think you get it. I think you understand the depth of the corruption here. And it's an election year, and it's just gonna keep happening. Now that leads me to this. In that same meeting, the FBI attempted to go after Andrew Torba, the CEO of Gab, by saying that Thomas Crooks, who I don't believe was the real shooter, actually had a Gab account. So this is from Kanakoa the Great on X, and he said the following regarding this. It says, breaking, Gab founder at Based Torba, which is his handle on X, just released an FBI emergency disclosure request, an EDR, that names Thomas Matthew Crooks's Biden-supporting social media account after FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate falsely testified under oath to Congress. According to his Gab account, Crooks supported Biden lockdowns and Biden's border policies. FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate just told Congress that an account believed to be associated with the shooter, quote unquote, had posted 700 comments in 2019 and 2020 with, quote, anti-Semitic and anti-immigration views, quote unquote. He went on and said, quote, while the investigative team is still working to verify this account to determine if it did, in fact, belong to the shooter, we believe it important to share and note it today, particularly given the general absence of other information to date from social media that reflects on the shooter's potential motive and mindset. However, the FBI's request to Gab specifically identified Thomas Matthew Crooks' account as Epic Microwave, quote unquote, which had posted comments completely opposite to what the FBI just told Congress. Moreover, Crooks donated $15 to a progressive PAC on January 20th of 2021 and posted comments supporting Joe Biden's border policies on Gab just weeks later in early February of 2021. Why is the FBI Deputy Director lying under oath about Thomas Matthew Crooks' views to Congress and the American people? Simple. Because they want Gab shut down, because Gab is where people get the truth, just like TikTok. If you know where to go on TikTok, you're forced to critically think. It's not to say that everything on TikTok is accurate. Some of it isn't. Even the bad guys get paid by the CIA to infiltrate TikTok and become basically controlled opposition. It's hard to believe that would exist on Gab because there's just too much truth on Gab and too many people out feds on Gab, which is great. It happens all the time. But they want Gab shut down. They want lots of social media shut down, but there's real investigative inquiry taking place on social media right now in a way that it's never existed before. It's always been, again, on the Chan boards or on Vote or on Poll or behind the scenes in these other chat boards, Godlike Productions, sometimes, of course, GreatAwakening.win, and certainly Telegram. This is where a lot of this investigative reporting is directly going. And, of course, a lot of that is being thrust now onto X as a platform in a way that it never has been. So in those Q drops, when Q says, we are the news, no doubt about it. There is no doubt about it. Again, if you watch the local news, you're being gaslit. If you're watching a congressional hearing, you're being gaslit. And if you're believing three-letter agencies and what these individuals are saying, with all of their three-letter agency guys sitting behind them, giving them death stares right through the backs of their heads, if you're believing these people, then you're believing the enemy. These are the same people that lie consistently. I mean, hell, these are the same people that will lie about the weather on a day in and day out basis. They have no idea what the hell's going on. They say it's going to rain one day, and then it's, there's not a cloud in the sky, and then the exact opposite the next day. These people can't be believed. They really can't. So I'll leave it at that, but all of that happened just the other day, as I'm sure you're aware, and again, it's just more agencies lying for one another, and covering their own asses. I mean, who are you likely to believe? Are you likely to believe an interior worker within a three-letter agency who shoots off an email as a whistleblower and tells everybody about how horrible the working environment is and how bad the administrators are? Or are you likely to trust an actual administrator who's testifying in front of Congress saying that their shit doesn't stink? And that, they made a couple of mistakes, but that's not indicative of the larger agency, and we've done good work in the past, so you need to, continue to put your trust in us, and so can the American people, and blah, blah, blah. It's beyond embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. And I'll tell you where else, of course, this is embarrassing, which I'm sure you've heard of also. Donald Trump gave a speech at the National, whatever it was, National Black Journalist Association or something like that the other day. He was rudely introduced, rudely questioned the entire time by these, again, left-wing whack jobs. Harris Faulkner was there and was rather respectful, but even so, the ABC gal who sat right next to Trump just laid into him right out of the gate, completely showing all of her biases. And yeah, and then of course was asked the question as to whether or not, I think she actually introduced Kamala Harris as being a black Asian, which, I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Really? She's black and Asian. Who knew? I mean, yes, India is on the continent of Asia, so, I mean, geographically speaking, I guess, but clearly she's Indian and everyone knows it who has a brain in their skull. But again, they're consistently trying to pass her off as being black, and that's one of the largest jokes in the history of forever. So Trump corrects her on that and says all of a sudden she just decided to be black when in fact she isn't. She was on a YouTube channel with Mindy Kaling from The Office, where they were cooking up some Indian meal, talking to each other about how they're both Indian. I mean, this audio is everywhere. You cannot escape this. This is the level of gaslighting that is beyond blatant. I mean, they're looking you in the face, okay? The media, government, XYZ, they're looking at you, in particular the media, of course, but they're looking at you in the face as you're both standing outside on a sunny day without a cloud in the sky, and they're looking at you saying it's raining. Well, as you can clearly see, it's raining. It's that old phrase that I've brought up before that I heard on CNN back in February. Let me tell you what you're looking at. It's ridiculous. So on Gab, because everybody, of course, over there has been putting up all kinds of stuff regarding Kamala Harris's ancestry and the pictures and everything else. She's as Indian gets. I put out this giant list that I saw on another board. I just cut and pasted it. And it had to do with Kamala's grandparents and parents and both of their sides, right down to great-grandfathers, dating all the way back to 1843 and 1858, so on and so on and so on. So here's what it says at the very bottom, because there's no way I can pronounce all these Indian names. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I'll be stepping on my own tongue the entire time. Again, it should prove to people she's about as Indian as it gets. But on the mom's side, her great-grandfather is Indian. Her great-grandmother is Indian. Her great-grandfather is Indian, and great-grandmother is Indian, all on the mom's side. Great-grandfather and mother are 100% Indian. Mother is Indian, and Kamala is 50% Indian. On the dad's side, he's English, Scottish, Irish, grandmother. These are great-grandmothers and grandfathers, basically. English, unknown, Irish, unknown. And again, her dad was born in Jamaica. It says out of the 16 paternal ancestors, 11 of them are from the United Kingdom, 34.375%, and 5 are not confirmed, 15.625%. Looking at photos, it appears Christina Brown, Kamala's great-grandmother, it says, one great-grandmother, Miss Christie, if that's her real name, as referred to by Donald J. Harris, is of mixed descent. Looking at photos, it appears that Ora Irish Allen, or Kamala's other great-grandmother, Miss Iris, as referred to by Donald J. Harris, Harris's father, is also of mixed descent. This would mean that Kamala is 50% Indian and 37.5% European and 12.5% Jamaican. She's mixed race. That's it. That's fine. The now bigger legal question is she allowed to run for president of the United States? Were her parents natural-born citizens? And the answer to that is no. So that's the next thing that needs to be blown out of the water. We've established she's not black. We've established she's not African American. Congratulations. Now focus in on the real fact, which is she can't legally run for president of the United States. Just like Barack Obama couldn't, and yet he did. Hell, she wasn't even qualified to be vice president. And everybody knows that too. So this is getting embarrassing. But I do like how Donald Trump continues to troll these people. He included, in fact, a picture of Kamala's family, all the women in their Indian garb, and he said, quote, this was on, August 1st at 9:56 in the morning. He said, quote, "Thank you, Kamala, for the nice picture you sent from many years ago. Your warmth, friendship, and love of your Indian heritage are very much appreciated," unquote. And it's a picture of all of them right there. And there's Kamala on the hard left. And she's, again, dressed up in all the Indian garb, and there you have it, with the thing in the center of her, in the center of her head between the eyebrows. They got her. They got her dead to rights. These people are pathological liars. Again, Justice Joe Brown, I played a clip of him in the last war video, where he called Kamala a piece of shit. Absolutely hilarious. And he made an excellent point. He said individuals that compromise their morals and values and sleep their way to the top doing the whole casting couch thing, it only gets them so far. I would take it a step further and simply say that this is a borderline mental disorder, if not a full-blown mental disorder. Narcissism is a mental disorder. Sociopathology and being a sociopath is a mental disorder, usually brought about by family trauma or some personal trauma that occurs to the individual. Being a psychopath is usually genetic in some form or fashion. You have a previous family member who is also a psychopath or, went off the deep end one particular day or throughout the course of their life, and it's worked its way into your bloodstream and your DNA and your mental makeup. But with her case, she's just a pathological liar. It's that simple. And a person who willfully distances themselves periodically or by choice, depending on the setting, from their family history is indicative of a person who is ashamed of their family history and their upbringing, unless it benefits them. In which case, of course, they're a sociopath because they have absolutely no problem lying to people's faces on a constant basis about where they used to live, where they come from, what they've done, who they really are. They're quite literally a walking fraud. And that's who she is. So how long is she going to stay in the race? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't think she lasts. And if she does, again, like I said in the last episode, who's keeping the media from just flat out taking it? And right now, the answer doesn't seem to be anybody. Unless, of course, Space Force is involved and they're keeping tabs on all of this and they've got plans in the future. But I think the legal battles are likely to kick up again. That's assuming we even have an election. Who knows? They may delay it and create even more chaos with all of this Iran stuff. Which now leads me to that. Israel, of course, is doing what they do best, which is just randomly bombing and killing people in the effort of stoking the war flames as much as humanly possible. This comes from Zero Hedge here on August 1st. This is titled the following: U.S. will certainly defend Israel if attacked by Iran in wake of Hania killing. It says more dangerous escalation rather coming from the Pentagon, at least in terms of declared commitments, quote unquote. How many wars or proxy conflicts does Washington want to be in at once? Again, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's out there. John Kirby's out there running his mouth, doing what they're doing. Israel is bombing locations, I believe, in Iran, Syria, and other places, certainly Lebanon. They aren't stopping. And again, is this going to lead to some kind of a election delay, postponement here in our country? Who's to know, who's to say? Is this going to lead to some manufactured attack that happens in the United States and ends up getting blamed on Iran? That's highly possible, and certainly a scenario that we haven't seen play out yet. But again, timing is of the essence, and they're ramping this one up about as stiffly as they possibly can. Again, Iran is openly coming out too, and they were actually defending Jesus Christ and defending Christians regarding the whole Olympics shenanigans, which I'll bring up here in just a second one more time regarding a rather specific topic of which you can probably imagine. But this was put out by the state of Qatar, and it condemned the assassination of the head of the political bureau of Hamas. They said the state of Qatar strongly condemns the assassination of the head of the political bureau of the Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement, Hamas, Dr. Ismail Haniyeh, I'm saying that right, in the Iranian capital Tehran, considering it a heinous crime, a dangerous escalation, and a flagrant violation of international and humanitarian law. I'm not saying that Israel didn't do it, but who's to say the CIA wasn't involved too? Hell, the CIA and Mossad work hand in hand all the time, so it makes perfect sense as far as I'm concerned. But it says the Military of Foreign Affairs stresses that the assassination and reckless targeting of civilians will lead the region into chaos and undermine the chances of peace. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterates the state of Qatar's firm stance against violence, terrorism, and criminal acts, including political assassinations, regardless of the motives and reasons. The ministry expresses the condolences of the state of Qatar, its leadership and people, to the families of the head of the political bureau of Hamas and his personal companion, and the state of Palestine and its people. Yeah. Basically, everybody who's level-headed knows that Israel's the bad guy here. I mean, we want the sand wizards to stay where they stay. Okay? Stay over there, mind your own business, and by and large, they do. The problem is when they come into foreign countries and they invade us. Just like what happened, of course, in England with the stabbing death of those 3 girls, and the individual that they've caught who claims to be 17 when clearly he's not 17 years old. He's at least 30, if not 40, or older than that. But they're saying 17 in England because they want to charge him as a minor. Not that the laws should apply to him in any form or fashion, assuming that 17 is legally considered a minor in England. I don't know. I don't live there. But, again, that's a complete fabrication, too. The point is that when foreigners make their way into foreign countries where they don't originate from or aren't of that culture, they're coming here not to blend in and, be productive citizens. They're coming here to kill people. That's the whole point. That's what an invasion is. But that's exactly what Israel's doing to other countries too. And yet, it's not being pointed out. We're just supposed to believe our government and Representative Elise Stefanik out of New York when she screams at the top of her lungs that Americans support Israel and they are our greatest ally and we should give them whatever they want. No, absolutely not. In fact, that leads me to this now. There's a video associated with this that I put on Gab, and I'll put it in the next war video too, but I found this on Substack, and it was titled Palestine Will Be Free, is the actual Substack channel, I believe, and it says, Israeli terrorists just killed Al Jazeera correspondents Ismail Al-Ghul and photojournalist Rami Rafai. I'm saying that right. It says the missile exploded Al-Ghul's head onto his press vest. The Zionist depravity is unending. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, looking at this video, it's 100% legit. This bomb, or whatever it was, this IED, went right through the roof. Appears to either gone through the windshield or the roof or the backside of this small 2-door, 4-door car. And the guy driving the car, this Ismail Al-Ghul, he's wearing a press vest and his head is blown to pieces right down to his neck. And his head is lying on top of his press vest. So no reason to believe that this is fake. It looks about as legit as you can imagine. There appears to be someone or something else hanging out of the passenger side of this car. But they're attacking journalists, they're attacking citizens, they're attacking kids. This is what they do. Again, it can't get any clearer. In fact, I'll go so far as to say this. If you're out there and you're listening to this, again, whether you have a show of your own or you don't, or again, you're like me. You're just a citizen and you have a voice and you have an opinion and you're knowledgeable and you care. My recommendation is that you stop playing soft when it comes to the Jewish lobby and Israel and the Khazarian mafia. You need to start calling these people out 100%. And if you find yourself in a conversation with a neighbor, a family member, anybody else, and they bring any of this up, my recommendation is you just come up with a mantra. Come up with something to say to anybody, whoever it is. Again, whatever that may be, but make it short, sweet, and make it direct and to the point so it makes it sound like you know way more than what's going on, about what's going on rather, than they do. So you can say something like, oh yes, the Israeli government is remarkably corrupt and they're killing innocent people. And they're working with our government and they're doing the exact same thing. Our government is guilty also. I mean, that's an eye-opener for someone who lives here, because they don't want to believe that we're the bad guys. The asleep people don't want to believe that we're involved in anything bad. And yet our government is equally as corrupt as the Israeli government. Because you can see, of course, who's bought by whom. Again, guilt by association is a very real thing, as we all know. So my recommendation, again, is you come up with a mantra. Now, again, is it all Jews? Of course not. That's absolutely impossible. It's geographically impossible. It's physically impossible. That's not the case. But it does happen to be the Orthodox group, and it does happen to be the practicing, and it does happen to be the Khazarian mafia. It happens to be those individuals. And then, of course, the lobby itself, the money lenders, the money holders, the property owners, the corporations. They're all in this. I mean, they're all in on all of this together at the exact same time, and they're not wavering. That's why they have their claws in J.D. Vance. I mean, one of his, what do you call it? One of his, it's not a supervisor, but it's something like that. It's a chief of staff. His chief of staff is Jewish. He's this little Jewish guy. And that's fine, I suppose, except it looks terrible. I mean, the optics of it are awful. You would think that you would just fire these people, but that's not the case. So again, we have to lean on this now. I've been doing it for quite some time, as have endless others, of course, even longer than me. But we have to lean on this. This is our enemy, and if we can't call them out, we're kicking the can down the road. And the more we call them out, the bullhorn gets sounded. More and more people pull their heads out of the sand and start going, what is all this noise being made? What's happening? This one person who never used to sound like this all of a sudden sounds like this. What is it that they know that I don't know? And then people start asking questions, and maybe dialogue starts to occur. This is the kind of stuff that has to happen. So, saving Israel for last, ladies and gentlemen. It was in the Q posts, and here we are. Again, it's gonna look real foolish. It already does, but it's gonna look real foolish if people keep their mouths closed about what Israel is doing to people, and they don't start calling these people out. They have to. We need to start. We need to start and continue to call these people out, and we can't let up anymore. We just can't let up. They're not going to all of a sudden become our best friends. Because again, it's the old false equivalency. We know that they haven't been since the beginning of time, and they still aren't. And again, it's infiltration instead of invasion. Also a Q post. Who do you think they were referring to? We know who they were referring to now. It's painfully obvious. That's why Q couldn't openly come out and be like, you know what, it's Jews. I mean, he's not, the Q team's not going to do that because we can figure it out for ourselves. We can figure out what's really going on. And that was one of the many roads that we were being led down with those posts, was to arrive at this general conclusion. Now you're figuring out who's willing to, again, take it to the next step and consistently call them out. This is a big deal. So again, that's my recommendation. Come up with a mantra. Come up with something consistent to say. There was also this, by the way, even Clayton Morris, he's one of many individuals calling them out, he and his wife, on their show Redacted, which is absolutely great. He openly covered a story of a Israeli prison that detained a Palestinian man. I believe it was a man, and these Israeli guards, these Jewish guards, raped the guy. They raped him repeatedly, passed him around and raped him to the point where he couldn't walk. Hello? Why is that not on the old local 12 news in Cincinnati? Why is that not, on Fox News? Why is no one bringing that up? What happened to our greatest ally? And then at the exact same time, in the government of Israel, what were they doing? They were trying to rule and debating on the support of whether or not rape should be allowed. Again, the irony and the timing of all of that. Not an accident. Again, this is this is how they behave. This is what they do. This is our enemy. We are not them. They are not us. So when you hear all this Judeo-Christian stuff, we are all Judeo-Christians. No, we're not. No. That's a completely made-up phrase also. Has nothing. Those two things have nothing to do with one another. Jesus was a Jew, Sean. Shut your face. Nope. He certainly wasn't. Not at all. They can keep saying that all they'd like. They can hijack whatever they'd like, including our Lord and Savior. But again, it's not the truth. None of that's the truth. Speaking of things, shifting gears here slightly, that isn't the truth, and of course, who is allowing this to happen? I think you know who. Why is it that men are allowed to box women in the Olympics? There's an Algerian taking to the squared circle, as it were, and just wailing on women, and has caused one of them, of course, to just flat out quit in the middle of a match, and this is all allowed. And women are complaining after the fact, and in particular, that woman was openly complaining after the fact and saying this is unfair. I didn't ask for this. This shouldn't be happening. It just brings me back to something I've brought up on the show numerous times, even dating back to Riley Gaines and all these other individuals who were swimming against that male whack job dressing up as a female and swimming against females. Why do you keep participating? Why do you keep going? Oh, look, here's the competition list. There's a dude. I quit. That's all you have to do. And if everybody does it at the same time, they're not going to give the gold to the dude who doesn't box anybody because everybody's just decided to quit. That's not how the Olympics works. Again, if everybody just stops participating and goes home and lives their lives doing something else rather than putting gloves on their fists and, getting out there and mixing it up, just go home. Isolate the abomination and let the abomination shine as brightly as humanly possible for everyone to see, and then they will explode. And if this happens time and time and time again, it'll stop. But it's the Jewish lobby funding this, allowing it, perpetuating it. Individuals are getting paid to allow this to happen, which again, walk away then. You know it's corrupt. It's the only reason they're there. It's the only reason that these individuals are showing up at these competitions is because the entire thing behind the scenes is 100% corrupt. Why are you participating then? Pull the game board out from underneath them by simply standing up and walking away. And do it all at once, together. Send a message. But they're not even doing it at the Olympics. The individual should have taken their gloves off, thrown their helmet off, spit out their mouthpiece and said, I quit, and walked off and walked away. When the dude started to come toward them, right after the bell rings in the first round. Send a stronger message. Don't even show up. It's disgusting. You get what you deserve. I mean, it really is one of these things where at this stage of the game, if you haven't figured it out, you just get what you deserve. Either organize and do the right thing, Or yeah, sure, if you want, stand in the ring and get pummeled. Or get mad and try to knock him out. But good luck. It's a dude. They have more force, they have more mass, they have more muscle volume. I'm not saying that these weakling men can't lose. They probably could, but they have no business being there. So don't even give them the stage to entertain their charade. Just pull the rug out from underneath them and make them go away. Or at the very least, like I said earlier, you shine a light on them by doing all of that, and then they explode because of the heat. Metaphorically, they'll just burn up and go away. One person does it, then another, then another. Again, you could do it one at a time and humiliate the ever-living hell out of them if you want to, or you can all just walk away at the exact same time. You can write a letter and say, we're not going to box a guy. This is a female competition. They're not a female. We quit. What are they going to do again? Award them the gold medal just by themselves? And by the way, if they do, they're embarrassing themselves as an organization, which they already have done. They're a satanic organization. We all know that. And what are they going to do? Stand on the podium by themselves and accept a gold medal when they didn't box anybody? Probably. They're a psychopath. They're pretending to be a woman when they're not. So, yeah, they'll probably stand there with a gold medal, but everybody will know they didn't actually win it because they didn't box anybody. And no one quit in the ring. And no one got knocked down, and no one went the full rounds and the full length of an actual fight, which means, again, they didn't really win. It's exhausting. I'm so exhausted that these people aren't figuring this out. In fact, that should go and should be a reminder right down to the local school level, at the K-12 and university level, that you need to do the exact same thing. And shame on any of you parents out there who let your kids play in a sport where Billy thinks that his name is Sally and he's out there on the field of play or whatever sport it is, pretending to be a girl when in fact he isn't. It's absurd. Walk away. Don't have your child participate in that kind of stuff. You're perpetuating the problem. You're leading to the consistent degeneracy of our nation and our people when you participate in things like that alongside people like that. Huge problem. And I've brought this up at length again on the show before, back when even the state of Ohio had their entire House of Representatives override the veto that Governor Mike DeWine put forth, where the House and the Senate approved all that transgender in sports stuff had to go away. Mike DeWine was out on an island all by himself. Now who is the biggest ass in the state of Ohio? It's Mike DeWine. It's Governor DeWine. No one likes him. Everybody hates him. This is what happens when you put these whack jobs on an island. Everybody looks at them under the sunlight and they make fun of them. And then they go away. But it's not going to happen if you're walking side by side with these people and playing their games. It won't fix the problem. Okay. Here we go. Education stuff. I have a number of things and some audio to play as well, which is highly disturbing. First of all, you may have noticed if you attend the OK Corral, as I call it, or the circus in town, which is, of course, the store Walmart. The Walmart in my town is like the OK Corral. There's robberies there all the time. If anybody's familiar with geography, in fact, I'm going to give you a real fun Walmart to go to. If you're ever curious and you want to take a vacation, go to Cape Coral, Florida, which is in Southwest Florida, go to Cape Coral, Florida, and go to the Walmart in Cape Coral, Florida on Del Prado Boulevard. I believe there's only one that's on Del Prado Boulevard, and honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Wild West. It's like stepping into Tijuana, Mexico. It is wild. Again, you see these videos of these Walmart people walking around. I'm telling you right now, the one in Cape Coral, Florida on Del Prado Boulevard is next level crazy. So yeah, pack a gun, make sure you have a knife on you, and walk around with a cell phone and take some pictures. Now, I haven't been there in well over 10 plus years, but believe me, I've been to a number of Walmarts across the United States, and that one takes the taco. So either way, The reason I'm bringing up Walmart is because Walmart is, of course, back to school, and all our back to school supplies are in full force. And yeah, while you're there getting back to school supplies for your children to be brainwashed in the American education system, make sure and go over to the hardware section and get yourself a tack hammer and hit yourself in the head because you're a moron if you send your kids back to school. In particular this year, with everything that's taking place politically. That leads me to this now. You're going to want to get a load of this audio. This is about 4 minutes long. This was from the Gateway Pundit. My apologies. In fact, it was also from Fox News. My apologies on both those references. But either way, this was titled Kamala Harris Supporters at Teachers Union Convention Left Befuddled when asked to name her top accomplishments. So this was the American Federation of Teachers Convention in Houston, Texas last Thursday. And somebody went around and decided to start asking these teachers who are wearing Biden-Harris t-shirts, and everybody's got their lanyards on like the good slaves they are, and they're wearing the shirts from their schools because, again, they're good little obedient slaves. And yeah, they're asked about what are the accomplishments of Kamala Harris and this administration, allegedly. And, well, it's the regular old NPC answers, and it's remarkably embarrassing. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the people teaching your children. They don't know what's really going on in the world. What makes you think they know what they're teaching in a classroom setting? I assure you they know nothing. So with that said, give this audio a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Student loans forgiveness, and still defending and supporting the American Health Care Act, Affordable Health Care Act.
I don't know. She was Vice President of the United States, and she was Attorney General in California, and she was the senator from California. I really don't know much of what she did.
I'm not sure I know enough about her accomplishments to answer that question.
Kamala has been at the forefront of human rights, civil rights, and LGBTQ rights since she was a prosecutor in California.
I think that the Harris-Biden administration has delivered for working people in so many ways. Infrastructure for the American people, getting us through the challenges of the COVID pandemic, funding for education has been very important.
I think that her biggest accomplishment is how she fights for education and fights for, it's not just teachers, it's everybody who is in the education system.
First of all, right now, to have a female as VP in the White House is incredible and amazing. She has been so inspirational to so many, so I think that's definitely a top accomplishment of hers.
Like leading the nation, empowering women. I know that would sound like maybe not necessarily political accomplishments, but as a female who's going to advocate for women's care and women's rights, that's really important for us and to model that for our daughters. So that's 2. The third one would be advocating to ban assault weapons.
Kamala Harris supports our union values. She supports our collective bargaining, and she supports the power of a union to improve wages for working families across the country.
I think she's a great provider for working people, especially children in this country. With the direction that they want to take the Department of Education, it's vitally important that we save the sanctity of our government when it comes to education and labor.
Well, as the vice president, when it comes to women's rights, the rights of human rights, as a matter of fact, and education.
Her accomplishment that I can speak personally on is loan forgiveness. I was in that first wave of forgiveness with President Biden and Kamala Harris. And when I say that was life-changing, it was life-changing.
Well, the first is that she is the vice president. The second, that she was in the Senate, and then also that she was the Attorney General for the state of California.
Is being elected to Congress. That's number one. I think breaking some glass barriers as being the district attorney. And I just think the way that she carries herself.
She was Attorney General in her state. She moved up to becoming, the Vice President of the United States. So she has definitely she's definitely made her stamp in history of being the first African American female vice president, and soon to be first vice president as a woman of color. I think another one of her accomplishments.
And then they continue support for unions to be able to collectively bargain, things of that nature.
They're completely retarded. There's really no need for analysis here. These are brainwashed individuals who are completely retarded. There's no way around it. Sean, you're just being mean and name-calling, and that's not nice and that's not fair. Ladies and gentlemen, there's probably a combined 80 IQ, or I would say at the very least, maybe not combined, that could be a bit harsh. Probably an average IQ of roughly 80, maybe 75 in that particular group. We're talking about men and women of all races were pretty much represented there for the most part. Men and women of multiple ages. Men and women ranging from probably their 30s to their 70s. Completely clueless. And most of what they were actually suggesting was an actual accomplishment, was something that she actually has no part in, nothing to do with, and wasn't responsible for. Like, for example, being a woman. Why is that an accomplishment? She didn't get to choose whether or not she was a woman or not. So just by God's choice, that's somehow an accomplishment. Interesting. Support for unions, that's apparently an accomplishment. No. Supporting something is not an accomplishment. Again, it's what has she created? What has she done? Agreeing with something else isn't an accomplishment. These people don't know what the word accomplishment means. Let that sink in for a minute. You heard, of course, supporting education. They support education, so that's an accomplishment. Is it? Is it really? Banning assault weapons. Hello? I thought that was funny. Banning assault weapons. First of all, there's no such thing. No such thing as an assault weapon, sweetheart. Too bad. That's sad. Loan forgiveness. Really? It was unconstitutional, and it's been revoked in many cases. The Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional, continues to be. The Biden administration keeps defying the Supreme Court and the law of the land. And, of course, who really pays off that loan? That's right, taxpayers. Not the person who actually sought to pay for the thing or claim that they were going to pay for the thing that they were attempting to pay for. Being elected, that was an accomplishment. That's right. Other people deciding that this person belonged in an elected position in office was somehow an accomplishment. Breaking glass barriers, ah yes. The old glass ceiling. Why? Why? Because they're a woman? Give me a break. This woman slept her way to the top. Everybody knows that. This is common knowledge. And if you, of course, brought that up in that conference, you would get booed. Because facts in the face of a belief system make these individuals scream, shout, and yell. Their belief system is too strong because they believe that a belief is a fact. And then, of course, the way she carries herself. I mean, who could forget the professional way that she carries herself? These were the list of accomplishments that all of those American school teachers claimed existed when it came to Kamala Harris. These people teach children. What are they teaching them? Not facts. Because they can't. It's impossible. Because they believe lies. Okay. Moving on. This was disturbing. Again, par for the course in this business. This is from WCPO Channel 9 ABC Cincinnati. I think I have some audio to play with this as well. I do. Here we go. It says documentation, Oak Hills district fitness teacher distributed possessed child porn, arrested at hotel with nude child. Yep, in the education business, this is called a Tuesday. Give this audio a listen in 3, 2, 1.
FBI has arrested a Delshire elementary school teacher. This is Mark Alter. He is now charged with possessing and distributing child pornography, and there could be more victims out there. Investigators are still searching to see if that's the case, and WCPO 9 News reporter Sean Delancey breaks down the extensive federal investigation into a website built specifically for pedophiles that led to his arrest.
This is the face federal investigators want you to see. Mark Alter, a Delshire elementary teacher accused of possessing and distributing child pornography. The FBI raided a Columbus hotel room to arrest him, where, according to his criminal complaint, they also found a naked minor. We're showing you his mugshot because police believe there could be more victims.
Makes me sick in my stomach.
James Burnett lives beside the school and was left flabbergasted by the news.
I don't know. I don't know. It just makes me so freaking sick.
The criminal complaint against Alter that I reviewed is extensive and disturbingly detailed. It says that the PE teacher posted at least 262 times on an unnamed website expressly for a, quote, child pornography community, serving the, quote, pedophile community around the globe. Can you believe something like that exists?
No, I cannot believe it.
Many couldn't, so I went to the cybersecurity experts over at Entrust IT. How is it possible that a website like this exists?
Well, there's a couple of different ways, Sean. I mean, A, it can be hidden inside something.
Like files buried in an otherwise unremarkable website, or it's on the dark web where it's hard for investigators to track people associated with illegal material. The website could also be based in a country where U.S. law means nothing.
Let's say a country where they turn a blind eye to this sort of thing, or frankly just don't care.
But Hatter says this is an example of how law enforcement can infiltrate these websites to find U.S.-based users. The criminal complaint says an FBI agent was on the unnamed site and connected an account there to Alter.
I'm glad that, law enforcement agencies are out there trying to put an end to this, because again, reading that complaint literally made my stomach hurt.
Oak Hill school officials say that they placed Alter on administrative leave as soon as the FBI notified them of an arrest. He is not allowed on school property right now. They say that the charges alone are enough for the board to move forward with firing him. In Delhi Township, I'm Sean Delancey, WCPO 9 News.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, this too is a perfect example of where school districts practice discretion at their will, whenever they want. Where I live, a business teacher had a history of groping female students, and he was allowed to resign after an entire investigation, and there wasn't a single prosecutor in the county who prosecuted him. Because, of course, that's a sexual crime, and he should be arraigned and brought up on charges of being a sexual predator and be labeled as such, and have to register as a sexual predator for groping female students over the course of time. And then, of course, school employees should lose their jobs for knowing that this was taking place, etc., etc. Did any of that happen? Nope. He was allowed to resign. He's lost his teaching license. If you Google the guy, he's out there, and in the court of public opinion, he'll never teach ever again. However, in this case, this individual's clearly kicked it up a notch, and he's gone. Certainly the board is going to remove him as quickly as possible. They don't need any more proof. He's been brought up on charges. There's plenty of paperwork. And that's the end of his career, and that's the end of his life, facing 40 years in prison. Good. Shoot him. A bullet's a whole lot cheaper than, the taxpayer dime for him to be in prison for 40 years. We need to amp up the amount of punishment that exists when it comes to these pedophiles. And every single person who has multiple witnesses come forward unequivocally and say that somebody did a particular thing. Again, in particular, if something like this were to occur over a certain period of time, even if there aren't very many witnesses, but there is known fact that it has happened, there needs to be swift justice against these kinds of people. This happens in every school district everywhere across the nation. And the number of people that aren't caught or are purposefully protected is endless. Because remember, they got caught online in this particular case by the FBI. And these dirty sites that exist on the internet to, again, purposely set up a great deal of these people. And then they, of course, always have law enforcement infiltrate these particular sites along with other citizen groups who openly go after these pedophiles and attempt to meet them out in public, and then, of course, record them and do whatever else that they do and get their names out there and then put that video online and then fill out police reports and have them arrested and figure out where they work and all of that stuff. I mean, all of that's good news when it comes to catching these people. But if those avenues didn't exist and the school itself sniffed something like this out, mark my words, one of their first moves is to almost always protect the individual. And if that individual is related to and or friends with some higher up within a school district, they're going to get protected. There will be favoritism. It happens all of the time. So there you go. Just another day in American K-12 education right there. Then there's this, leaning into jab-related news. This was also from Zero Hedge this past Tuesday. It was titled, "School That Gave Child COVID-19 Vaccine Against Parents' Wishes is Immune from Lawsuits, So Saith a Court." It says a school that injected a minor with a COVID-19 vaccine despite the boy's parents telling school officials they did not want him to receive a COVID-19 vaccine is immune under federal law, the Vermont Supreme Court has ruled. The Federal Public Readiness and Emergency Prepared Act, or PrEP Act, protects state and school officials who were named as defendants in a lawsuit brought by the minor's parents, justices said in a July 26th decision. Quote, "We conclude that when the Federal PrEP Act immunizes a defendant, the PrEP Act bars all state law claims against the defendant as a matter of law," Justice Karen Carroll said. The PrEP Act, signed in 2005, grants immunity to administrators of covered vaccines except in cases involving willful misconduct. COVID-19 vaccines are covered because of a 2020 declaration extended multiple times thereafter by the U.S. Health Secretary. It says Dario and Sujen Politella sued officials after their son was injected with a Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 shot in 2021 at the Academy School in the Wyndham Southeast School District. Before the school hosted a vaccine clinic, district and state officials confirmed that students needed parental consent to receive a vaccine, and the boy's parents said that they did not consent. Just days before holding the clinic, Mr. Politella, emphasized to the school's assistant principal that the parents did not want the boy to receive a shot. The boy was removed from class on the day of the clinic and labeled as another child who had already been vaccinated. The boy told workers his father said not to give him a vaccine, but they distracted him with a stuffed animal and gave him a shot, according to court documents. The Vermont Superior Court dismissed this suit from the parents, finding that they needed to bring litigation in federal court under the PrEP Act's immunity exemption. Lawyers for the parents, though, argued that officials did not show that the PrEP Act covered their actions and that the case should play out in state court according to state laws. In a brief to Vermont justices, they pointed to other cases in which that has happened. Justices said that each defendant, including the school's nurse, is covered by the PrEP Act, and that the allegations against them are related to the administration of the vaccine, which makes all defendants immune. While there have been rulings in other cases that the PrEP Act only preempts claims against covered people for willful misconduct, none of these cases supports the proposition that plaintiffs can proceed in state court against defendants who are completely immunized from liability under the Act, Justice Carroll said. She wrote later that, quote, "Other state courts faced with similar facts have concluded that state law claims against immunized defendants cannot proceed in state court in light of the PrEP Act's immunity and preemption provisions, including claims based on the failure to secure parental consent. Attorneys representing Mr. and Mrs. Polatella and the defendants did not respond to requests for comment, unquote. Again, if you need another reason to not send your kids to school, this should be one of them. Because now that kid's screwed. Hopefully not. But again, as I've been over on the show in great detail, the quantity of juice in the syringe is not predetermined. And if it is predetermined, the quantity of juice that is in the predetermined syringe, where the juice is already in the syringe, differs from syringe to syringe. It's all poison. We know that. But the quantity that is in those syringes changes from location to location and syringe to syringe. Not to mention the actual person sucking the juice into the syringe on the spot at the actual time of injection differs from person to person also. Some people, some nurses, want to call them people, whatever, some people actually believe that if they give them a little bit more in that syringe, that it's somehow going to help them and protect them a little bit more. Those people exist. Again, this is a constant. This is happening all over the United States. Just because a story doesn't make its way to Zero Hedge or make its way to your local news affiliate doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. And there are a lot of children out there who receive those shots even when their parents didn't want them to. They knew that their school was doing it, their friends were doing it, their friends at school while they're away from their parents were looking at the kid and saying, you can get it too, we're getting it, everything is 100% fine, and they didn't want to be excluded from the group, so they got in line with their peers, and they all got the shots, either during the actual school day itself, or after school, or before school, or whenever it is that they were delivering these shots. And now the kid has health problems, and the parents who are unjabbed have no idea why that's the case. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a genocide. It's that simple. And it's an ongoing genocide that is not going away here. It's becoming more and more painfully obvious. The number of people on YouTube alone who are getting sick and they're jabbed and they don't know why is endless. In fact, most recently, comedian Tom Segura and his wife, I believe, are both jabbed. Now, what leads me to believe that is that Tom Segura, being a stand-up comedian, he did an entire special tour for one of his last comedy specials approximately a year ago. And I remember seeing a video on YouTube of him actually taking a COVID test, a nasal swab test, when he was over in Australia. And that was during the time when you couldn't be in Australia if you weren't jabbed. So he's jabbed, and his wife is jabbed. They have to be. And now his wife, Christina Pazinski, who is the co-host of their Your Mom's House podcast, she has breast cancer. What from? Again, she openly admits having a mammogram, and then months later saying, well, they found something. Well, mammograms cause cancer. So if you're a female and you're listening to this show, please listen to me very carefully. Never get a mammogram. Capital Never. Never get a mammogram. They crush the breast, they bruise the breast, and then they radiate it at the exact same time. So you're breaking cells apart that are healthy and intact, bruising them, which is internal bleeding, and then radiating them. And that's what cancer is. Cancer is a cluster of abnormal, oxygen-deprived, broken cells that the body can't get rid of. So they cluster in an area that is deprived of oxygen. And a breast that has been bruised and radiated, one or both, is going to be deprived of oxygen. That's shots aside. That's just with the COVID jab bioweapons aside. You introduce the bioweapon in the middle of all of that. What caused it? I decided to bounce over to their webpage on, their YouTube page. We'll see how long the comment stands up there on their YouTube page, but I was the most recent comment at the time, and their episode received 376,000 views of where she's talking about having cancer about halfway through the show, and I simply said, mammograms cause breast cancer because radiation and bruising at the same time cause cancer. Never get them. COVID jabs cause cancer too, and she's jabbed. So is her husband, Tom Segura. Good luck. That's it. Again, I could provide more advice, I suppose, but do you think that those two are going to take it? No. They base, again, comedians base their entire career on not taking anything seriously. Everything is a joke. So when something becomes serious, they're even trying to find jokes about it, but at the exact same time, do you actually believe that they're willing to look in the mirror and say to themselves, well, we caused this. Wouldn't you know it? I'm being introduced to facts from other individuals where this has been actually going on since the very beginning. Perhaps we shouldn't take any more shots. Perhaps we shouldn't have taken them in the first place. Again, everybody who's jabbed and injured from these jabs, I wish them the best. I truly do. But it's not up to me. It just isn't. Eventually, again, you do this to yourself, and if you keep turning a blind eye to what you're doing to yourself and putting in your own body, what do you expect? It's called cumulative risk. This is what happens. Here's another one. Again, this is teacher and administrative related. Jesse James sent me one from Michigan here the other day from Montcalm County, ISD. Their superintendent has died after a quote-unquote brief illness. This guy was relatively young. He's dead. So I took it upon myself to get on Start Page as a basic search engine, and I typed in teacher dies, and I did a search, and then I typed in administrator dies, and I did a recent search just within the last couple of months. Now, some of these are from a number of months ago, but a lot of these are just from this summer. Here are the headlines. One was from April 15th of this year. These are all from this year, by the way. Enfield teacher who died suddenly during Key West vacation remembered as bright light. There's one. Another one, St. Charles Borromeo, if I'm saying that right, school teacher dies after drowning at Inglewood Beach. Don't know if it's jab related, but it could be. Hart High School principal dies unexpectedly. Again, listen to the terms that they use when they describe these deaths of these school employees. It's died suddenly, died expectedly, or after a brief illness. Time and time and time again. Here's the next one. Watauga County school teacher dies unexpectedly. That was February of this year. Beloved Bethel Park School District teacher dies. That was, July 26th. Above and beyond, beloved Akron public school teacher Denise Williams dies at 67. That was from June 9th. 25-year-old teacher dies months after marrying high school sweetheart, heartbroken rather. That was back in February 29th. New Jersey school superintendent dies unexpectedly. That was 20 days ago. Pregnant New York teacher dies after collapsing in her classroom weeks before baby was due. That was March 14th. You also heard me bring this up a long time ago, and I brought it up in Substack articles. These people are dropping in front of other people. In their places of work. There are witnesses to this. And these school districts are openly hiding why these individuals are dropping also, by even saying we're not commenting on it out of respect for the family, so we're not commenting. Someone in these school districts knows exactly why these people have died. Because some of these people are very young. They're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and they're dropping over. Here's another one. District cancels classes at Loveland High School, around where I live, after teacher's death. This would have been back on, let me zoom this in real quick. That was the beginning of May of this year. May 6th, I think. There you go. Here's another one. Teacher dies after spending nearly 2 years battling infection stemming from common cold. Because that's common. Of course, it's not common. Not in the slightest. It was a female Kentucky teacher, and this was actually a very heartbreaking story. All of these are, but this one was beyond odd. Talk about brainwashed. This woman felt sick, decided to go to the hospital. 30 minutes later, she's intubated. This was 2 years ago, so we remember what was happening during that time with hospital policy. She was intubated. She received 2 lung transplants. And then, again, apparently lived a little while longer and then recently passed away. Absolutely ridiculous. Here's the last one. Second Auckland school principal dies suddenly this month. 2 school principals, 1 male, 1 female, 1 white, 1 black, not the same age, but potentially close to one another in age, in the same district, both die. Again, what's the one thing they all have in common? I find it remarkably interesting. Again, getting back to Tom Segura and his wife, that someone like Tom Segura and his wife can be guests on Joe Rogan's show, knowing the things that Joe Rogan has brought up on his show and the guests that he has had on his show. And then, of course, not look at one another, even on their own show, which also airs on YouTube, and say, this could be shot related. And if it wasn't shot related, wouldn't you come out and say it? And say, well, she didn't take the shots, so it's not that. These people are more concerned, quite literally, with protecting their own image, so they think, protecting their audience by keeping their audiences shielded from the truth. And they're interested in all of that charade rather than just telling the truth about what's really going on. Or at the very least, dispelling any rumors or accusations or assumptions that individuals have because, well, we connect dots and we can figure out what's going on. You would think that they would want to do something like that too, but apparently not. Apparently it's just kind of a, it's a treatable cancer, it's stage 1, it's going to be fine, it's very survivable, and everything's going to be A-okay. That may be true in a typical case. But given the fact that they may be jabbed, that kicks things up to a completely different notch. Not to mention, what's the typical standard procedure, for a diagnosis of cancer from someone certainly within the hospital system? Chemo and radiation. Surgery, chemo, radiation. All of which, of course, is designed to shut down multiple things and make people even more sick and kill off good, healthy cells. Not knowing that there's cancer protocols that exist where the drugs that are used are over the counter and natural remedies, and that these things exist too. But if a person doesn't think, and a person doesn't know, and a person doesn't investigate, and they forfeit everything to the pharmaceutical industry, then you're at the whim of the pharmaceutical industry. And that pharmakia is a spell that gets a lot of people killed a lot of the time. They're the biggest murderers that walk the face of the planet, after all. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say other than I hope, again, that everybody who is jabbed has this poison turned to liquid and turned into water. I really do. But if individuals are refusing to learn, then I don't know what else can be done. Because if they're not going to come to grips with what they've potentially done to themselves, you reap what you sow. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in, and that's the way it rolls. So, ladies and gentlemen, sorry to end on that note, but hey, it's happening. It keeps going on. More reason, again, hopefully you've heard in this episode, to not send your kids to school. Now is a great time, as always, to consider to figure out how to home learn and what curriculums to use. There's an entire PDF document that exists on my website, AmericanEducationFM.com, under the Education Documents tab, that you can download for free, because everything over on my website is free. You can check out everything. You can start looking on YouTube, type in home learning, figure this out. This is how we win. We don't win by trying to reform the government systems. We win by abolishing them as individuals and then as families. And then that becomes a generational abolishment of government, which leaves government then and government's games to the lowest common denominator, and that's their problem. But don't make it yours. Take control back. And this is exactly one way that you can do it, is with your own children. They can read and write. They can teach themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening this week. Things are going to continue to amp up, of that I am certain. And I will catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.